Your son's 13.
He's 13.
First of all, I want to assign a copy to him.
Please do. Please
For
do.
me, this was...
She's demanding the impossible. She wants the judge to hit Justin and 7 other defendants with the harshest sanctions available under Rule 37E, penalties so extreme the court would have to pretend Blake's entire smear campaign theory is true, even though she hasn't proven a single part of it. She wants the jury to be instructed to believe Justin carried out a secret digital attack against her in August 2024. No proof, no evidence, just Blake insisting it must have happened. And that's the trick. Blake isn't presenting real messages. She's accusing the defendants of using the Signal app with auto-delete turned on, and then claiming the missing messages would magically support her story. But Justin's legal filing turns the whole thing on its head. It says Blake cannot show these messages ever existed, that anyone had a duty to save them, or that anyone destroyed them deliberately. The court cannot punish people for evidence Blake only imagines existed. The harshest line in the filing makes it clear. Blake isn't trying to uncover the truth. She's trying to punish the defense because the actual evidence doesn't support her claims. And once you look at the timeline behind her theory, it only gets worse for Blake and Ryan. Blake Lively's entire smear campaign narrative collapses the moment you examine the actual dates. Justin Baldoni's legal team walked the judge through the timeline step by step. Blake keeps insisting the defendants should have known a lawsuit was coming as far back as November 2023, which she says means they had a duty to preserve every message from then onwards. But here's the problem. In November 2023, there was no PR crisis, no public drama, no online eruption, and no hint of a future digital war. The film wasn't even finished shooting. Here's what really happened. Blake made complaints during phase 1 of filming. Her lawyer sent a 17-point demands letter essentially threatening to walk unless Wayfair agreed to her conditions. Wayfair agreed immediately. The issue was resolved, and everyone moved on. There was zero talk of a future smear campaign, nothing about PR teams, nothing about online strategies. Blake's own public meltdown didn't happen until August 2024, almost a year later, after she had taken control of the film, pushed Justin out of marketing, unfollowed him publicly, and used her Betty Buzz booze brand to promote a story centered on domestic abuse. The backlash exploded because of her own actions, not because of some secret plot. And here's the most revealing detail. Nathan, the PR strategist Blake is now fixated on blaming, wasn't even hired until August 2024, long after her supposed preservation duty date. There couldn't have been deleted PR messages from 2023. The PR team didn't exist yet. It only gets messier from here, because Blake's claims don't just fall apart, they actually contradict her own words. She keeps insisting she was severely harmed by missing Signal messages. Yet, on the very first page of her own motion, she admits she already has substantial evidence of the digital campaign she says took place. That single admission destroys her argument. Justin's filing highlights it clearly. If Blake already has substantial evidence, then missing messages cannot possibly be harming her. You cannot claim you're dying of thirst while holding a full bottle of water. It gets even worse. Blake argues that these deleted messages might have proven her theory, might have shown a secret plan, and must have existed, yet she never identifies a single message. Not one. She wants the court to punish 8 people over conversations she cannot prove ever existed, and the contradictions keep piling up. She claims the defendants obviously deleted evidence, while admitting they immediately switched off auto-delete after receiving her litigation hold letter on the 20th of December, exactly what the law requires. She claims every defendant used Signal to talk about her, but the evidence shows some defendants never used Signal at all. Others used it only for unrelated clients, and some only began using it after the PR crisis had already erupted. Blake is painting all 8 defendants with the same brush because she needs them grouped together. The moment the focus shifts to individuals, the entire structure collapses because she cannot tie any supposedly deleted messages to any specific person, and Justin's team knows it. Their filing calls her strategy exactly what it is: a last-ditch attempt to bend the rules because the facts aren't on her side. But there's another detail that completely destroys Blake's theory, and it's the part she's most desperate to keep hidden. The digital smear campaign she keeps talking about wasn't even created by Justin or his team. That entire explosion came from somewhere else entirely. Here's the detail Blake Lively does not want the judge, the public, or even her own fans to focus on: the huge surge of negative online attention she now calls a smear campaign didn't come from Justin Bell, it came from her own behavior. Justin's legal filing lays out the timeline with receipts, and it's brutal. Blake claims the defendants secretly used crisis PR tactics to whip up hate against her, but the internet turned on Blake before the PR team was even hired, before any coordinated plan could possibly exist. The timeline says it all. July 2024, Blake seizes total control of the film, pushing Justin out of marketing and editing. The 2nd of August, the PR team sends a scenario planning document, just ideas, nothing executed. The 6th of August, premiere chaos. Blake hides Justin and his guests in a separate screening room, refuses to be photographed with him, and publicly unfollows him. The 8th of August, a massive spike in negative online chatter erupts before the supposed digital mastermind Jed Wallace even started working. The 14th of August, another spike hits, and Blake still can't explain how 8 people supposedly controlled the entire internet within 48 hours. Blake created her own PR disaster. She used her Betty Buzz alcohol brand to promote a film about domestic violence, publicly humiliated Justin at his own premiere, and attempted to erase him from the film he developed, financed, and starred in. The backlash wasn't a conspiracy. It was the natural consequence of her own decisions. Justin's team says it plainly. The internet didn't need any help turning against Blake. She managed that all by herself. But Blake's attempts to rewrite this catastrophe don't stop with Justin. She's dragging in people who were barely involved, including one person whose story is about to turn into her biggest problem. Which brings us to Colleen Hoover. Colleen Hoover has just become Blake Lively's worst nightmare, and she doesn't even realize it. For months, Blake has tried to use Colleen as a shield. This is the author. She supports me. She knows the truth. That was the narrative. Until Colleen spoke. In her new Elle interview, Colleen says she was completely unaware of anything happening on the set of It Ends With Us. She didn't see drama, didn't hear drama, didn't know anything. That one line detonates Blake's entire "everyone knew Justin was awful" narrative. But here's where the contradictions start piling up. Colleen's "I knew nothing" act doesn't match her own behavior. She publicly praised Blake when the lawsuit dropped Blake Lively. "You've been nothing but honest, kind, supportive, and patient." She deleted photos with Justin. She unfollowed him. She took sides, heavily. So how can she now pretend she had zero knowledge? It only gets stranger when she claims she has her own story to tell, despite saying she didn't witness anything. So which is it? Did she see nothing, or does she have a secret story? Her contradictions don't stop there. Colleen spent years promoting It Ends With Us as her mother's real-life story, then later admitted only one scene came from her mum and the rest was fiction. Now she's suddenly claiming she and her mum have PTSD from the film's backlash, despite never having gone to therapy. Every part of her narrative seems to shift to suit whatever image she wants to project that day, and that's exactly the problem for Blake. Her star ally is now a walking contradiction. Proving Justin's core point, Blake's case relies on inconsistent stories, emotional manipulation, and people who crumble under basic scrutiny. But if you think Colleen's contradictions are bad, wait until you see who Blake teams up with next. Wait until you see who Blake teams up with next, because the next alliance is even more absurd. Blake Lively is now so desperate for evidence that she's teamed up with the very same PR company she accused of smearing her. Yes, you read that correctly. This is the part of the story that feels like a bad soap opera, except it's happening in real court filings. Blake and Ryan's team are now working side by side with Jones, the crisis PR firm that represented Justin Baldoni and Wayfarer in 2024. The same firm Blake claimed masterminded a digital hate campaign against her. The same firm she swore was part of the smear machine. Now they're suddenly partners. Why? Because Blake needs something, anything, that might support her collapsing narrative. And Jonesworks is desperate to protect its own reputation, which is why it's suddenly willing to give Blake whatever scraps might save them both. This unlikely alliance surfaced during a dispute over subpoenas. Blake is demanding even more data from Jonesworks, particularly messages from Jennifer Al, the PR employee whose texts Blake cherry-picked and leaked to the New York Times. Justin's team told the judge they've already handed over everything the law permits, but Blake wants deeper access. And here's the twist. Even Jonesworks doesn't have the magic evidence Blake is begging for. Why? Because the digital smear campaign she describes never happened. The judge even scheduled an emergency hearing because Blake and Jonesworks keep trying to dig up information that either doesn't exist or proves absolutely nothing. This alliance makes Blake look exactly like what Justin's lawyers have been saying from the beginning. Someone trying to force a story into existence by clinging to anyone willing to play along. But the deeper Blake digs, the more she exposes the cracks in her own case. And nothing highlights her hypocrisy more sharply than the one thing she keeps weaponizing: humor. Now we arrive at the hypocrisy at the heart of Blake and Ryan's entire lawsuit. Ryan Reynolds can say anything, no matter how creepy, rude, or wildly inappropriate, and it gets dismissed as harmless jokes. But when Justin Baldoni makes a single mild comment, Blake calls it harassment and uses it as the foundation of a $300 million lawsuit. The double standard isn't subtle, it's blindingly obvious. Take Ryan's most recent soft parenting speech at the Wall Street Journal event. He joked that his children are spawns of Satan. He joked about messing them up. He joked about not punching down. Despite the fact he literally built an entire Deadpool character, Nice Pulul, around mocking Justin Baldoni without ever telling him. That's all considered fine, because it's Ryan. And Ryan is allowed to be funny, even when the joke is at someone else's expense. But Justin, he says it's hot in the bar because the air conditioning is off, and suddenly Blake twists it into, "He called me hot. He made me feel exposed." He said he missed the sexual harassment training, except the video evidence shows Justin never said she looked sexy. He said the room was hot. He joked about missing the HR meeting. not a sexual harassment seminar. He didn't slink away in shame. He stood there laughing with Blake and Jenny Slate. And yet Blake fed this warped version to the media, pushing a story so melodramatic it could only survive in headlines, not in court. Even worse, she claims other women came forward after this moment, yet she hasn't listed a single crew member from the set as a witness. Not one. Because the people who were actually present didn't see anything inappropriate. Blake wants absolute control over what counts as humor. When she and Ryan joke, it's comedy. When Justin jokes, it's abuse. And that leads directly to the biggest contradiction of all, the one showing Blake's case didn't implode because of Justin. It imploded because of her own behavior. This is the part Blake Lively's team tiptoes around, because it's the one truth they cannot spin, hide, or erase from the internet. Blake didn't become the villain of her own film because Justin Baldoni smeared her. She became the villain because of her own actions, and the public watched it unfold in real time. Let's break it down. Before the film even premiered, Blake seized full control of it. Ends with us, editing, marketing, even dictating how Justin, the actual director, was allowed to appear during the rollout. She pushed him out of the promotional process for his own film. That isn't rumor. It is backed by documents and witness accounts. Then premiere week arrived. Blake unfollowed Justin publicly. She refused to take photos with him. She insisted Justin and his guests be hidden away in a separate screening room so aggressively that crew members literally described it as banishment. The internet saw it. The press saw it. Fans saw it. And the entire narrative flipped overnight without Justin saying a single word. Then came Blake's worst PR decision of all, using her Betty Buzz alcohol to promote a film centered on domestic abuse. Images of her smiling beside branded cocktails tied to a domestic violence storyline spread across social media like wildfire, and the backlash was immediate. The internet didn't need a PR firm to turn against her. She handed them the match, the petrol on the lighter herself. By the time August arrived, the negative online chatter was already volcanic. Long before any crisis PR firm was hired, before any strategy was drafted, before a single signal message even existed, Justin's team hadn't made Blake look bad. Blake had done that herself. She wrecked her own reputation and then tried to sue everyone around her for the aftermath. She weaponized innocence, victimhood, and even the subject of domestic violence to cover up a PR catastrophe of her own making. And that desperation only intensified as the case progressed, driving Blake into increasingly frantic moves, including trying to prevent the public from seeing the evidence Justin filed in court. But that attempt triggered one of the biggest legal clashes to date, and that showdown is exactly where the story goes next. The unsealing fight Blake is terrified of. Blake Lively is fighting harder to hide Justin Baldoni's evidence than she is to prove her own claims. And now the judge is calling her out. Justin filed 275 attachments with his summary judgment motion, an enormous volume of material. Out of those, 183 were sealed, not by Justin, but because Blake or her allies labeled them confidential. Then Justin's team dropped a bombshell. Almost all of the sealed evidence consists of Blake's own messages, Blake's own documents, or third-party material Blake doesn't want the world to see. So what does Blake do? She runs to court demanding an extra 2.5 weeks before any of it is unsealed. Her excuse: she needs more time to review the documents. But Justin's team fired back with the obvious fact: Blake has already seen every single one of these materials. She created half of them. Her multi-million-dollar legal team has been reviewing them for months. There is only one reason to delay. She needs time to prepare media spin before the public finally sees what she has been hiding. And the judge isn't accepting her reasoning. He has already ordered an emergency hearing because Blake keeps blocking evidence the public has the right to view. Justin's side argues that transparency matters. Blake argues she needs more time. It's painfully clear what is happening. Blake doesn't fear Justin's arguments. She fears Justin's receipts. She fears what the unsealed documents will reveal about her behavior, her contradictions, and the flimsy foundation this entire lawsuit has been built upon. Because once the truth comes out, it won't just be Justin she has to worry about. It's her reputation, her credibility, her carefully cultivated image. And the deeper Blake digs, the more people she drags down with her. One of those people is Colleen Hoover, whose own behavior is about to make things even worse for Blake. As the trial draws near, the cracks in Blake Lively's entire narrative aren't just visible, they're splitting wide open. And now, every desperate move she makes only reinforces Justin Baldoni's position. Blake's story relies on 3 pillars: a secret smear campaign that never actually happened, supposedly deleted signal messages she cannot prove ever existed, and a circle of allies like Colleen Hoover who can't keep their stories straight. One by one, those pillars are collapsing. The internet turned against Blake because of her own actions, not because of anything Justin did. The timeline completely undermines her claim that anyone should have preserved messages from 2023. The PR team she blames didn't even exist when the backlash began, and her attempt to hide Justin's evidence is now backfiring in full view of the court. Even her supporters are stumbling. Colleen Hoover, who once publicly backed Blake, now claims she knew nothing and has her own version of events. even though she previously insisted she was deeply involved and emotionally invested. That sort of inconsistency helps no one. It simply exposes how unstable Blake's entire narrative really is, and the legal filings make something else absolutely clear. This case isn't about justice. It's about control, about image, and about rewriting a story the public has already watched unfold. Blake is trying to force reality to match her lawsuit, but the truth is already surfacing through the filings, through the evidence, and soon through the unsealed records she fought so hard to keep hidden. Justin Baldoni isn't merely defending himself. He's pulling back the curtain on the manipulation behind the entire case. And now, it's only a matter of time before the rest of the world sees it too. If you want the next breakdown the moment those sealed documents drop, hit follow, tap the bell, and stay tuned. Hit follow, tap the bell, and stay tuned.